Hey there, I'm Chroma, and welcome to part 4 of making an abstract adventure. Welcome back. This time we have made quite a bit of progress. Now we can switch between our characters as well as attack with now having these crates here that we can destroy. So that's cool, we have that. And as you can see, we have these red cubes around both of our players that at the moment is just temporarily showing the colliders for the attack. And as you can see, they're different for our two characters. So now we're finally making our characters different, which will start to happen more and more now that we are going to be making the abilities for our two characters here. But yeah, for now, these red cubes, they'll eventually be replaced with the actual sprite animations of the attacks that we're going to make. I'm planning for our sphere character here, we'll have like a sword that'll slash down, and for our cube character here, he'll have like a bow staff that'll spin around. So that's the attacks that I'm hoping for there. But for now, let's get into play mode and show what this is actually looking like. So we can move as always, but now if we hit control, we will switch over to our other character, and yeah, that'll work. So one gets disabled, the other gets enabled, movement-wise, and we can switch now as well. Now, well, these crates, actually, yeah, over here you can see they're just box colliders with, they have box colliders with rigid bodies, and the actual design is just by having some circles that are stretched out and then a square. So that's that. But now, if we hit J, now we can attack. And I'm thinking control-wise, you'll have like your fingers on WSD and J, K, L, and I, and that'll be like how most stuff is done. I'd like for this game to potentially be able to support controller input, so these key buttons are like the temporary thing for that. But eventually it'll be like the two sides of a controller. So, but for now, so J attacks, and as you can see, whatever direction we're moving when we start the attack, well, as soon as if we move the other direction mid-attack, then the attack will stay being in the direction that we started it. So it won't like switch directions mid-attack. So it's consistent that way. So yeah, that's good. As well, when we attack a crate, it gets destroyed. So yeah, as well, when we're on top of something and we attack, it won't destroy the crate underneath. So that's good. Eventually, some characters, or I forget, one of them is going to have like a downward slash thing, so you'll be able to destroy things beneath you, and then there'll be like hatches and all that sort of stuff. So we'll have that. And now if I go over to our cube character, he has a attack that goes to both sides, basically. Yeah, so we have that. And, well, if we're at the side, then yeah, we can destroy our cubes as well. As well as you can see here, if one character falls into a pit, yeah, they're going to die and it'll get all reset and whatnot, which at the moment isn't going to be too much of a problem because the plan level-wise with these characters, what I'm thinking is that there'll basically be 3 types of levels. One where you're playing only as the sphere character, one's where you're playing only as the cube character, and then near the end of the game, then I'll start to have levels where you play as both of them and then you switch between them. I don't know how much they're going to occupy like the same space or just be in 2 different areas of a map. That'll come down to level design when we get there. But for now, I kind of want, like, I'm more just planning for the characters to exist on their own, but I want to make this functionality now for them to be able to switch just for down the road when we make levels that have both characters. But most of the playing is going into just the single characters levels because that'll be most of the game. I don't know completely if I even will do the double levels. We'll see how long the game is when we just stick with single character levels, because it'll also be easier to plan starting off. Basically a whole bunch of we'll see when we get there. But yeah, I just wanted the characters to be able to exist in the same space without getting a bunch of errors, and I'm hoping to build the whole game that way in terms of enemies and hazards and, I don't know, turrets, that whole thing. Just making sure that both enemies can exist without the AI of all those things getting messed up. But anyway, for now, yeah, so let's get into the code of how all this is running. Actually, first, let's go into the Unity side of things of what all this is looking like. So we've already looked at the cubes, which has a tag called destructible, and I might rework how like hazards and enemies and destructible things, how that works, but for now, we'll just leave that as is. Then over on, where is it? On our characters here, we now have a square main and a circle main, which at the moment function the same, but soon will be different. And then now we have a player attack script, which has the attack time, which is how long the collider is active, and then an attack wait delay for the delay between when we can attack again. And then now we have a child object, well, another one, that is the actual collider, the red collider of being able to attack. And then it has this player hit script that actually deals with the colliding with stuff and testing for tags and all of that. So now let's get into our code and see what's changed over here. So starting off, our circle main and square main are the same, except now we've added a player attack, getting a reference to that script, and then the running a function in our update function that's going to be on that script. As well, having a hidden variable for the active player that's dealt with, I think, in the camera follow or no, player change, one of those two, of what player is active, so which one should be moving. Yeah, all that. So now onto our player health. Most of the changes here have just been adding both of these existing, the circle main and the square main, getting references to both, and then when we need to actually use them, seeing which one we have a reference to, and then activating or deactivating the correct one. Same thing, actually skipping ahead to, the camera focus. It's more or less the same here. Yeah, getting a reference to both, seeing which one exists, activating or deactivating the correct one. On our camera follow, this is a bit different now. We have these same variables as before, the smoothing, the zoom, and all that. Now we get a reference to the player and a potential target to do the disabling player's controls to pan over to something and then pan back, and then 4 variables for that thing that we're transferring over to. Basically, it's the same variables here, but different. And then these are all the same as before, I believe. Yeah, so actually, I can't remember if they are or not, so I'm just going to go over them again quickly. So we have a move position, that is how the camera's moving. These 2 variables for these velocities that don't do anything, but they needed to exist for these functions here for some reason. That's just how that was. And then getting a reference to the camera, to the actual camera component to be able to do the changing the zoom. Then here now we test, on the camera as well, there is, if I can find it, a player change script that is used to set which character starts being active. And also if this script is absent, then that would be for the one character only levels. Then if, so it looks for that component, and if it can't find it, then it automatically sets, it looks for Cal. If he exists, then it sets him as the active player. Otherwise, it finds Q and sets that person as the active character. So, and then gets reference to the camera, and then sets the zoom. And then over here, ignoring this target thing for a second, over here, well, actually, if we have a reference to, or actually, if we don't have a reference to a target, then we use the smooth damp function to move our camera. Otherwise, meaning if we do, it's most likely going to be the case that we don't have a target, meaning that we're following the player. But otherwise, then we are doing the same thing, but following the target that was set with all this target offset height and target smoothing and all of that. And then using that to move the camera. So now our camera focus, that is what sets that. So it has a reference on an object for that target to set. I believe I've already gone through all this before. I think it's changed a bit, but for the most part, it's the same kind of system for how it's going. So now moving on to our player change script, we're moving on to more actual new stuff. So we have this drop down for our active player, then getting a reference to the camera follow script and the main scripts of our 2 characters there. then setting up, actually getting those references, then if the active player is set to Cal, then setting his over on our main scripts, this Boolean here for whether or not they are the active player, setting that to true or false, depending on which one is active, and then setting the camera follows player reference to Cal or Q, and then in our update function, testing if we press the left control button, and then changing the active state as such, which is kind of a copy of up here. So yeah. And then just make sure that two characters can't be active at the same time, which is not what we want. Unless for at some point in the level we want both of them to move identical to each other, but that's probably not what we want. Anyway, so on our player hit script then, that was on the actual trigger for, like the actual collider for the attack. It's just simply testing if the thing that we've collided with if it has the destructible tag, that it destroys it. Eventually, when we make enemies, we'll probably have a separate one for if it collides with an enemy, getting a reference to some enemy health script and then calling a function on that. Or, yeah, something like that. Then our player attack script here. Now we have the public variables that I said before, that we showed in the editor. And then as well, private Boolean for whether or not we can attack, a reference to the transform of the attack collider to enable it or disable it, a reference to the rigid body, and a reference to the player ground check. Yeah, because if we are on the ground, or if we're in the air, we apply a small bit of up force when we attack, otherwise we don't. So we start off getting all those references, in our start function, and then in a public attack function here, then I don't believe that needs to be set to public. Yeah, or no, yes, sorry, yeah, that's what's called by the circle main, square main, yes. So we have that set to public. So we test if we can attack, and then if we can, then we test if we're hitting the J key, and it's on get key down, so you have to like press it each time, you can't just hold it down. Yep. Then we call our wait to attack coroutine right below it. So we set can attack to false, then set the collider equal to true, and this would also be where we would play an animation or a sound effect or all that sort of stuff when we make those. Then we test if we're not grounded, and if our velocity is less than 1, so if we are moving down, but also like if we're almost moving down, like if we're moving up just a small bit, we're also going to apply this up force anyway. Or if we're not moving up or down at all, but in the air, basically having some leeway on that. So then we set the rigid body's velocity to 0, and then apply it up force. That's just a fixed value that I could make a public variable, but this value worked nicely, and I don't think I'm going to change it, so it's going to just stay like that. Then we wait for the attack time, then disable the collider, wait some more, and then set the fact that we can't attack to true, which then leads back to here of being able to attack again. So yeah, that goes through all of those scripts there. So now we can attack, and our characters are starting to be more different. So that'll be it for this, I think. Yeah, so that'll be it for this. Next time I think I'm gonna now start to work on the characters having different abilities. Probably starting with the sphere. No, maybe the cube's wall jump, because that's going to be a thing. Something like that. I think each character is going to get like 2 special abilities each, plus like a sort of passive thing. Or something like that. Still working that sort of stuff out. But anyway, so that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, I'll see you around.